And in this edition of the Nature Recorder, we're going to be taking a quite leisurely look in more or less real time at some fallow deer recorded on the 28th of May 2019 by me, Mike Downes, using the mobile phone on the back of binoculars mounted on a tripod technique. So there's lots to look at here, and I'm really doing a voice-over narration 24 hours after recording this. So I'm sat at my home studio looking at these pictures, talking about what we actually get to see with the fallow deer, and pointing out those things, hopefully in some animal behaviour. And you can see at the moment they're out in a field, and sometimes they will feel that they get alerted that they must move very quickly to survive. So this is May 19, which means in this location it's a through road, where at this precise moment I am still on the path, but very, very close to the road, only a couple of metres, and we get about one car probably every 5 to 10 minutes, and a few walkers and the odd horseback rider coming through. Now, what we're going to do is, for those people who don't get the chance or quite honestly don't know where to look, then they can see a herd of fallow deer in action and how they move around. So over the back there you can see some trees, which we will go into those woods a little bit later on. But right now we're just getting a feel of, if you're at the roadside or walking and you're completely new to watching fallow deer, and there are, if you look quite well, there are hundreds around, maybe in groups of 1 or 2, 3 or 4, up to about 50 or even 150, but you've got to know where to look, and they are brilliant at hiding in plain sight in almost the rolls and the curves of the fields. And you'll see in a moment there, if you haven't seen already, that if they do it right, you can see that halfway up the picture there we've got a herd of deer, but if they get it right, they can just poke over the top with their eyes just to see what's coming and going, but they will remain quite hidden, especially if you're in a car on an open road. You know, you've probably got your eyes on the road. If you're a passenger in the vehicle, you might look out. Very, very easily you won't spot anything. What we are going to see here is quite a lot of behaviour, possibly agitated behaviour, where the deer aren't under threat, perhaps by a walk or a horse or another animal to run and hide or run away, but they are very, very wary. So watch for this behaviour of them. Like you can see, there's a dark deer in the middle there that is aware of me, but not aware enough to actually want to take cover and walk off or run away. Every picture you see here is recorded in x2, so in other words, this video is a leisurely look at 20 minutes long. So in real time, yesterday I was out in the field for 3 hours, and the total video recording I did was 40 minutes. So in other words, I record 40 odd minutes real time. What you see back is x2 motion. This is quite a nice shot where they're stood around very, very close together, but not wishing to move away. What else can I tell you here? This area is probably about 8 miles northeast of the M25 London. It's another 1.5 miles from the main line railway station line that comes from, say, Essex into London, to London's Liverpool Street. So you've also got a main dual carriageway there, almost pseudo motorway, called the A12. This spot here is only 1.5 miles from that. So if you were travelling in a fast car or on a train, down that A12, only a mile and a half, you've got some woodland with public footpaths, open fields, ancient woods, and there are hundreds of fallow deer around there. Sometimes I've been to this area and there's literally none in this particularly open area, and yesterday when I was there were lots. I think for me, particularly as a former school teacher, I'm looking for some patterns in this behaviour, as well as being quite calming and relaxing, and also to understand and to see if I can make something in this series, the Nature Recorder, to be quite useful to people who are not familiar with nature, because I can guarantee that if you go in this area with another human being, or especially a dog, you'll be alerted like 100, 150 metres. These deer will be gone, you'll never see them. So yes, I've got some Nikon 10x40 binoculars which I'm using mounted on a tripod, with the phone on the back. See a previous video for that technique. So what can we learn about what is going on here? You can notice that they are, oh there we go, we're off now if we want to focus directly on it. It's so interesting because I don't know who's in charge. I'm not skilled enough to understand, although I've been watching deer in this particular location for at least over 5 years, I'm not skilled enough to understand the inner workings of what I'm seeing here. But as you saw a couple of seconds ago, they're running away and then they are coming back. So I would particularly say, from somebody looking at it, I would say that they are wishing to be very, very aware, almost like they're circling their wagons if they were on a wagon train, but they're not moving. Later in this video you will see them move away from this field in a very, very polite and orderly fashion. Maybe for me, when I'm alone out looking and watching, I find the deer incredibly polite, like timid, sort of respectful. But I remember the early days years ago where I had a Nikon DSLR, and the click of that shutter over what felt like 100 or so meters, maybe 200 meters, would be enough to move them away. You can see there's a bit of, I don't know what that behaviour is, whether they're going up on their hind legs and pushing each other. I don't know the age of these deer, whether they are juvenile, but certainly we're in May, so it's kind of like the fawning season. All fallow deer, despite the dark ones, melanistic I think they're called, but again I'll put a couple of links to other articles like the British Deer Society and some Wikipedia links. Some of this goes on for so long, and I remember stood on the public footpath just watching in. There is so much that and I'm sure you will see on the video, that it's just impossible to see in real life, because, well, let's be fair, my mobile Android screen is only, 5.7 inches diameter, and it's bright, it's windy. Notice that the way, watch their heads and their ears, that they are physically looking towards me. At one point I went out and I was talking to a chap, and then another lady and gentleman, and they were fine with it. They didn't move off. I was also talking to a cyclist who got off his mountain bike, and we're having a good chat, filming like this, and they didn't move. Yet, as you'll see later in this video, they do get pressured by another human being who was trying to take photographs, and they did get up onto the public road, which is, of course, can be disastrous for the deer and for any passing motorists. I think we're pretty much halfway through already, aren't we? I've cut inside actually to the public footpath inside the woods just to give you an idea. And my question that I always say is, if I was a deer, what would I do? Now you notice that just nearby they are clearly outside in the farmer's field in the fresh air and the sun, yet they didn't wish to be at this moment, of course, inside. There might be deer inside, but on this public footpath where I've met walkers and horseback riders going through, then it is an area that I rarely see deer inside. There are areas, of course, of the woodland that is off limits to the public, and so therefore the deer by deduction, I guess, as my tripod, the deer by deduction would actually say that they are probably the safest areas, because of course we're in England, and being only a total of about, I don't know, 20 to 25 outside the city of London, then yes, there are lots of deer around, but you need to find them. I'm still inside the woodland now, but clearly I'm looking out through an aperture between two trees, and I'm just watching again. Notice the deer on the left there that is sat down. I think they might be sort of very small antlers on there. There's a lovely moment coming up here, and I've watched this video in preparation for doing this voice over, where they are alerted to something in the far distance away from me. So if we just watch this piece of behaviour coming up, I thought they'd actually spotted me inside the woods, and I'm like behind a tree and also very low down. I'm not standing up, I'm quite low down to take away any object, and yeah, you can get a good idea, can't you see, that I'm pretty much behind those trees. I've got to get low enough so I can physically see out. Of course I'm still with the mobile phone and the Nikon binoculars. Other branded binoculars will be fine. So you'll notice that they, because I'm seeing more of their back end, I guess, than front, some are looking, I can't see that there's, very, very rare for me to look at any deer where the deer are not aware of me. So it's just starting there. See the deer in the dead centre? No, I was going to say, yeah, quite a lot of them are starting to gather and to line up away from me, which I think for me is quite a nice sight, because it means that I'm watching them. They don't know that, or they're not showing that they know that they've spotted me, but they have spotted something, I think, way in the distance over there, I think is the public road, and they're just starting, I think, to line up and be wary of any movement. There you go, look, can you see that the way they're actually looking, and I thought they were actually looking to me, but clearly we've got the ears and we've got the back of the head, therefore their eyes and their face is pointing directly away from me. And that's probably one of the first times I've ever seen that, because mostly they are aware of me, but this time they aren't. Look at how many of those deer are deciding if there is a threat, I would say. Again, I would say this is just my opinions, I'm not skilled in deer behaviour, more of a generalist. They're looking away, looking away. There's a little crafty crow there or something on the floor walking around near them. There's a little ranking behaviour there, walking up and down. Now, I'm actually on the border now between the woods, and you can see there's a plate there saying no public access. So we've got a public footpath, we've got the woods on the right hand side, and very clearly the open farmer's field on the left hand side. And I'm just figuring out what is going on here. So there's quite a lot of movement. Are they clumping again? Are they herding up? Maybe they are. But what I'm really getting to, and again, this is what you're seeing here on these clips, is all of my video footage. I haven't edited anything out apart from one tiny clip of another human being with a camera and a tripod that I just who is responsible, whether knowingly or not, of getting off the footpath and scaring the deer on the road, and we'll see that at the very, very end of this clip, or on my previous video that was uploaded to YouTube. Now that centre deer ears and face pointing at me, I would say may be aware of me. Well, let's be honest, I'm I'm probably a silhouette on the edge of the path, although I'm actually sat on the floor with the tripod very, very low. What are we, 15 minutes in? Again, if you haven't been out and about, or you are out and about all the time in a car or public transport or something, there we go. There we go. I was going to say take some time to have a look. Now, in the very, very corner of this field, and this is what I mean about being, in my opinion, extremely polite and well-mannered, in that they want to leave, or they are going to leave. And remember, you're seeing this in times by 2, and in a moment you'll see some deer go up onto their hind legs and start nibbling at the leaves of a tree. You can see actually quite clearly the border, and they are starting to go. Now, I don't know who the leader is, and I don't know what the behaviour is. All I do know is that somebody, one of them, or I don't know how it works, is given an order to say, right folks, that's it, playtime's over, come out of the field and let's go back into the woods. And they are quite leisurely walking. I wouldn't say they're running, I wouldn't say they're scared, they're just saying, okay people, almost like children on a playground, the bell's gone, it's time to go indoors. And just watch on the right of the screen here, and we can see some in a moment or two, just to tip you off that they will go on their hind legs and start chewing at the trees. Now, I haven't done any counting. You can have a go, but I think I lost count at least 80, I think, when I did it before. Little chat there on the playground. Obviously it's not a playground, is it? But you liken it to what you know. I would say that they look like they're actually queuing up single file sometimes, and I've seen them do this in an open area before, where they've come along and you've literally had 100 deer all going through a little path which is only probably about 30 centimetres wide, and they go in one by one at a time, and they're very polite and they queue up. Little look up high, get ready for it. I think this deer is going to go up on hind legs to start. There we go, little chew off of the tree. There's another one there off of the tree, and I've just tilted the camera, panned it round to the right, and you can see that there's quite a few legs there, but they are going. Now, I don't have access to that piece of the woods where they are going. I can try the footpath, but I think it's too dense, and if I'm going to, which I do, apply the law, which is keep to the public footpath and don't stray away from it, then that gives the deer some sanctuary and some peace and quiet and a safe area. Remember, these are wild fallow deer, so they can roam wherever they wish. Just quite honestly, so can a human being, as long as you keep up to the law. Then I've swapped over to the other side of the road, and these are some deer in an open area where they, I think, are quite happy. And this is just off of the main road, and I'm literally by the intersection of the two paths and the public road that you're about to see in a couple of minutes. Now, these deer are minding their own business. They're kind of aware, I think, of me, but I don't think they're actually too bothered. Now, something happens to the right at this stage that I am not aware of. Being the deer, they are aware of it, and what they'll start to do is they've got to make some decisions, in my opinion, and their decision is, let's take cover. And you'll see that they are all starting, remember this is double quick time. Let's say the threat was to far to the right hand side, which I believe that I found out later is a human being with a camera and a tripod, not on a public area. And there they go, and they're going in the woods. In the next few minutes, or a few seconds rather, we're going to watch them drop off of the ditch and then go, I would say pretty quickly, out of the way. And then to the last two, look up to the right there and let's go. Gone. Then we go on to the next stage, where I'm looking around to see that this is a few minutes later and they've all come out, but you notice the behaviour here where they're very packed in together, and although they're feeding and looking, now they're moving, I would say, away from what they perceive to be the threat. Again, all of this is viewable from the public road. There's another look around there. Again, this is minute 20 of 22 in this, and you'll see what alarmingly happens next. Bear in mind we've got a couple of 100 metres here. And for whatever reason they're making decisions that they feel must be right for them, again, in my opinion, to stay safe. And then all the way to the right hand side, after probably walking around for about 500 metres, they've now got to the public road. And this is the clip I shared a little bit earlier, and also in other places like Twitter and Facebook and things, to say that from a motorist's point of view, oh my goodness, the deer are back on the road, but they're not. The reason they're on the road is because they've been travelling a distance of 500 metres, walking around, probably nervous, because they feel they're under threat. There comes the car. Thankfully, I've actually flagged down that car a couple of seconds earlier and literally pointed and waved my arms, and I think I got a sort of a nod in there to saying, okay, I understand, and that was just enough to actually warn that driver and to avoid a collision. That was the Nature Recorder with Mike Downes about fallow deer.